What's up, folks? Welcome to my channel. Just wanted to pop in here really quick before we start the video and ask you to please subscribe, like, comment, all that good stuff. That's what feeds the algorithm monster and keeps this thing going. If you're interested in the audio versions of the podcast, of course, we are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all those good places. We sell our t-shirts and stuff like that I wear during the show on justworkco.com. You can find me on all the social platforms pretty much at I am Dave Hurt, and you can follow the podcast Instagram at the Free Mind Podcast. All right, that's enough. I hope you guys enjoy this video, and I appreciate you. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of Free Mind Podcast. I am your host, Dave Hurt, and I'm glad you're here. Before we jump into it, excuse me, goodness gracious. Before we jump into it, I would like to take a moment to thank our sponsor, justworkco.com, justworkco.com, where you can get awesome t-shirts that represent the messaging we talk about on this podcast. So justworkco.com, if you want to pick up any of the shirts that I'm normally wearing. I'm actually not wearing one of them right now, which probably wasn't the best decision. However, I really like this tie-dye t-shirt. So justworkco.com if you're interested in the Free Mind t-shirt, which you guys have probably seen me rocking on here, the Question Everything t-shirt, the Sovereign t-shirt, or the Just Work flagship t-shirt. All right? Okay, had to remember to get that out because that is what keeps everything going. So also, if you guys could please subscribe to the channel if you value any of the content we're putting out here, and like some of the videos, maybe drop a comment. That would be awesome. If you're on YouTube, that is, because that is what feeds the algorithm. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please subscribe, review, rank, rate, whatever the particular platform uses. I would greatly appreciate it. Okay, my friends, so just a few things to talk about on this episode of the show. First off, you guys may have already seen this, but I think it's noteworthy because you're starting to see more and more celebrities speaking out in favor of those who are opposed to mandates. So speaking out against mandates, I guess, is a better way to put that. Shaq has recently come out on his podcast and said that he does not think people should be forced, basically, to take the vaccine if they don't want to, and their job shouldn't be in jeopardy if they don't want to take the vaccine. So I'll just, this is from The Hill. There's a bunch of articles on this, but hold on a second. Okay, that is annoying. This is from thehill.com. So this is a statement that Shaq made on his podcast. I encourage everybody to be safe and take care of your family. I do, he said on Thursday on the big podcast with Shaq. I'm just reading you guys this article from The Hill. And then he goes on to say, but it's just people don't want to take it, and you shouldn't be forced to take something you don't want, he said, referring to the COVID-19 vaccines. Yeah, Shaq, I would tend to agree, my friend. But then it says his co-hosts were disagreeing with him, and Nichelle Turner and Anthony Spice Adams, who I don't know if they're his co-hosts or if he was just interviewing them for the show. But anyway, they were basically arguing with him. So Shaq went on to say, I'm going to probably get in trouble for this. And then he offers a hypothetical situation, and he says to Nichelle, your sound guy at Entertainment Tonight has been working there for 10 years. And that's the only job they know. Let's say they put out a new policy. If you don't get the vaccination, you're going to lose your job. And then he said it was unfair to force them to make that decision. And then Turner wholeheartedly disagreed with O'Neill, his words, her words, I'm sorry, blah. So Nichelle Turner says that she wholeheartedly disagrees. And then she says, you're not just affecting yourself, you're putting the public at risk, and it's a public health issue. Now, this is what drives me insane. People are still parroting that absolutely inaccurate, incorrect talking point. You are not putting anybody else at risk if you don't get the vaccine. I'm sorry, that is just a false premise, period. And I would love for her to actually explain how it is that you're putting someone else at risk. Vaccinated people catch and carry the disease. Unvaccinated people catch and carry the disease. Vaccinated people can spread the disease just like unvaccinated people. You are not protecting someone else if you don't get or if you do get vaccinated. You're protecting yourself. You're mitigating the most severe level of symptoms, potentially. Now, this most recent variant, that's questionable because there's been so much mutation in the sequence. But you're definitely not putting the public at risk and putting other people's health at risk if you don't get vaccinated. That is preposterous. It's not based on any sound science. It makes zero sense. And I'm so sick and tired of people parroting this because they don't know what they're talking about. It's this whole virtue signaling, and I know that's an overused phrase, but it truly is, because they like to say, I care about others. I put others before myself. I put the safety of others first. I care. I'm so great. No, it does nothing. It does nothing. You're not protecting them at all. They should get the vaccine if you're worried about protection for them, or they shouldn't. That's their decision, but it has no effect on you if they don't get it. That rhetoric is absolutely uninformed. It's dangerous because it creates this divisiveness between people. It creates vitriol coming from the vaccinated side, especially thinking that unvaccinated are dangerous or dirty or whatever. And it's just absolutely asinine. This Nichelle person needs to do a little bit of research. Maybe go back to biology 101. A lot of people need to do that, in fact. It's so frustrating. Anyway, it's good to see Shaq coming out in support of people's right to choose, and especially because it does not mitigate the spread of the disease if you get this vaccine. It protects you, and that's great, but it has nothing to do with protecting others or anything like that. So just wanted to talk about that briefly. So Shaq is speaking out, and I believe just last year, or just a few months ago, I can't remember when it was, he was saying the opposite, essentially that Kyrie Irving should get vaccinated, and he was sort of speaking out in opposition to Kyrie's decision not to get vaccinated. So it seems like he's kind of changed his mind there, which is good to see. And you're seeing more and more kind of mainstream celebrities start to embrace the other side, or at least not just fall in line like mindless pawns with the mainstream narrative. And so that's been great to see. There is a little bit of free thinking out there. People are actually autonomous individuals who can put together a couple brain cells and critically think, which is good to see. I just wish it had happened earlier. And again, these people like Nichelle, who spouts this dumb drivel about it's for protecting others. Learn the underlying science. That's all. Just, my God, it's. I'm trying not to be negative, guys, but it is so frustrating when people are still saying dumb shit like that 2 years later. We know the data. We know that, yes, it can reduce hospitalization and the severity of disease for you if you get the shot. But you see comparable viral loads. You still see viral shedding. You still see vaccinated people spreading, especially the Omicron variant, like crazy. So this whole, I got it because I care about other people. It's not just me in this equation. It's ridiculous. It's preposterous. It's based on nothing. Okay, if this were a vaccine that actually stopped the spread of the disease, like Rachel Maddow falsely claimed early on, and by the way, was not tagged for misinformation for that, and the clips are still up. She says, the vaccine stops with every vaccinated person. They can't spread it. I think she actually even said that a vaccinated person can't even catch the disease, or it was just the most ridiculous, false, just diametrically opposed to the truth statement an individual could make.
Now we know that the vaccines work well enough that the virus stops with every vaccinated person.
That's not true.
A vaccinated person gets exposed to the virus. The virus does not infect them. The virus cannot then use that person to go anywhere else.
That is a lie.
And there's people still saying dumb shit like that, like this Nichelle person. Like, I got it to protect other people. No, you didn't. That's not how it works. It doesn't protect anybody but yourself. Just shut your mouth and learn something. Okay. Sorry for being so negative. I really need to lighten the mood up here. But good for Shaq. I'm happy about that. So that's a positive thing. Way to go. And there are more and more sort of mainstream, I guess you would call him a celebrity. Yeah, he's a celebrity for sure. Okay, let me just breathe here. Relax a little bit. Getting all worked up in like the first segment of the show. So Joe Biden and his administration, this is so crazy that I had to triple check, do a bunch of searching, read multiple articles to confirm, because I thought for sure that I was seeing satire when I first saw this. But no, this is absolutely true. I'm going to read you guys a headline. This is from Daily Mail, but there are lots of news sources publishing articles on this. I'm going to read you the headline and you can judge for yourself. Here we go. Biden administration to fund programs that hand out crack pipes to prevent infection and promote racial equity. That's right, guys. You heard it, and I did not stutter, and you heard it clear. Our administration here in the United States is funding a $30 million grant program to hand out crack pipes as well as other things, needles, the essentials, so you can partake in illicit drug use safely and effectively. And it's so insane, like I said, that I thought it was an Onion article when I saw it. Okay. A spokesperson for HHS, that's Health and Human Services, said that included in the kits that they'll be handing out, by the way, giving preference to communities of color, okay, there are going to be pipes for users so that they can smoke substances like crack cocaine and crystal meth. And they said that this is a good thing because typically users smoke out of glass pipes, which can lead to cuts that can become infected. All right, the shelves are bare. Inflation is through the roof. The middle class, the working class are getting crushed right now. We're on the brink of conflict on the Russia-Ukraine border, and our national debt continues to climb. And what does the Biden administration do? They take 30 million taxpayer dollars, a portion of which goes to crack pipes to give to minority communities. Now, I would like to know, and perhaps you guys can inform me here if you want to comment below, how does providing crack pipes, as well as hypodermic needles and other necessary paraphernalia, depending on the drug you prefer, how does providing that stuff to minority communities promote racial equity? I'm serious. How does that promote racial equity? Now, if I were the conspiratorial type, I might think to myself, gee, this sounds like a direct effort at continuing to keep minority communities entrenched in drug addiction. But that would only be if I were conspiratorial. I'm sure there's no way that's what they're trying to do. Somehow, providing crack pipes to minority communities promotes racial equity. So, another point that they make here, which doesn't make much sense because they're also providing safe, quote unquote, safe needle pickup sites or whatever they call it, But they're saying that by handing out pipes, they'll promote users to smoke rather than inject themselves with some substances like meth, because injection is far riskier. So it's very important to provide tools with which minorities can participate in the use of illicit drugs and avoid more riskier methods like injecting themselves, although all of these are illegal. So I'm curious, I mean, if someone comes and gets a free crack pipe through the Biden's plan here, the Biden program, and they take that crack pipe and they go and smoke crack on a street corner somewhere or in an alleyway or whatever, and a police officer sees them, arrests them because they're using an illicit substance, is that entrapment? The federal government gave them a crack pipe that they then went and used to smoke crack and got themselves arrested. Also, a point here, it is against the law to sell or distribute drug paraphernalia, including such pipes. So, all right, I mean, so it says they're handing out pipes. Now, I don't know if that is a scenario where they have to stay there on site, use the pipe and dispose of it, or if they're allowed to run off and do whatever drug they prefer. But again, we are enabling the use of illicit drugs. How is that? I mean, how is that not entrapment if they run off using the tool you provided them and get themselves arrested? You set them up. You set them up. Or if the officer identifies that it's a Biden crack pipe, you get to continue on and you don't get arrested maybe. I don't know. But I'll tell you what, guys. My dad was a crack addict. He's dead now, in no small way because of his drug addiction. And growing up with two drug-addicted parents, specifically one of which was addicted to crack, this blows my mind. The last thing my dad needed was easy access to crack pipes. It destroyed so many families, including my own, during the time he was alive, and caused so much trouble. If just the thought that he could just go somewhere and get crack pipes handed out to him is just so insane to me. And I have to think that a lot of the people who make these decisions and come up with these harebrained programs have never had to live in a drug-infested neighborhood. They've never had to deal with a crack addict parent. And they have no clue what they're talking about. And again, I'm going to bring it back to the racial equity thing. How in the hell is providing, and look, let me read this to you guys here. Applicants for the program get priority if they are underserved communities, such as African Americans, Native Americans, or LGBTQ. Again, how does providing crack pipes to Black Americans, Native Americans, and other minority groups, how is that equity? How does that benefit them at all? Anybody who, maybe I'm missing something. Honestly, maybe I'm missing something here. Is it because white folks have easy access to crack pipes and they're trying to create equity that way, make sure that people of color, minority communities, whatever you want to call them, underserved communities, as they put here, also have access to said crack pipes? I don't get it. I don't get it. This is just so insane to me. It truly is. I just think back to all the times as a kid that my dad would disappear, for days on benders. It's just wild, y'all. It's just wild. So, sorry, I'm at a loss of words. I truly am. This federal government wants to demonize the use of a safe, effective pharmaceutical drug that's been available for many years and saved billions of lives. That's not an understatement. They want to demonize the use of that, ivermectin, for treatment of COVID, yet they're perfectly fine providing minority communities in America with crack pipes. Make that make sense. We're going to help you do your crack, but you can't take ivermectin to treat your COVID symptoms. It has to be a simulation, you guys. It has to be. This cannot be real. We must be in a simulation. Boy, oh boy. And the wild thing is, they say in one part of this that providing crack pipes or pipes to smoke out of, because you can also smoke meth, I guess these are multi-use pipes, providing them will prevent syringe use. But then they also say that the kits that have the pipes in them will also include syringes that they'll be handing out. So this is just so full of contradictions. It's an insult. I mean, truly, if I were, and again, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe a civil rights advocate or someone who knows more about this can help me here. But why is this creating equity, racial equity, as they say? Why is handing out crack pipe? I mean, this is like, if you go back in time, it could be like a Chappelle skit, like handing out crack pipes in the hood. Like it's wild. It's wild. All right. It says cities like San Francisco and Seattle have experimented with their own crack pipe kit distribution programs. Others have backed away from such plans. It says nothing, of course, about how effective those have been. And if you know anything about San Francisco and Seattle, it looks like pretty ineffective if you ask me. I lived in San Francisco for a couple years. It is an absolute dump. And it's a shame because it's so beautiful in the Bay Area. But San Francisco, I mean, there human feces everywhere in certain parts of the city, needles everywhere, just homeless everywhere, drug addicts. So yeah, very effective program. So, the DOJ also said Monday that it may allow safe injection sites to open across the U.S. Such sites would be safe havens where drug users could use heroin and other narcotics freely without risking arrest in an environment monitored by health professionals. Okay, well, look, here's the thing. I'm not a fan of the war on drugs. Okay, I think that there are so many ways that we've messed up over the decades in the war on drugs. And yes, both of my parents were drug addicts, but my dad, yes, was crack. My mom was opioid. She was addicted to OxyContin. Okay, so it's not just the illicit, illegal drugs that ruin lives. In fact, more often than not, it is also pharmaceuticals, especially when you're trying to get opioids on the streets. You think you're getting an oxy, it's laced with fentanyl. Boom, you're dead. Okay? So I am fully aware of the negative aspects of drug addiction. However, there is a whole host of issues that come with making a lot of these drugs illegal. So I think that we're in this weird limbo where they're still illegal, but we want to create these enablement programs where we are providing people with all the necessary tools to commit crimes, essentially. I think that is cognitive dissonance to the nth degree, and you either need to legalize the drug and facilitate safe use, or keep it illegal, enforce those laws, and not facilitate safe use. We're in this weird in-between where it's a crime, but we're going to help you commit it. You can come by, pick up your crack pipes, and go off and smoke your crack or your meth. No problem. The government's got you there, but don't let us catch you doing it. Like, what is going on here? And how does this create racial equity? All right. Wild. Just wild. By the way, my dad has passed away. He had epilepsy, and obviously when you combine drug use with epilepsy, not a very good combination. He was found face down in a canal, presumably because he had an epileptic attack. May or not have been brought on by drug use. We don't know. He was, after all, an addict. But my mom is still alive, but unable to stray too far from the methadone clinic. She is on methadone for life because she was addicted to opioids, and haven't seen her in a very long time. Probably won't see her again. Anyway, next topic, shall we? And this will be the last one and we'll wrap up. So only 3 tonight. I want to talk about censorship, but I want to, and all of you have probably heard the big headlines, Rogan getting censored, as well as others, but Rogan's been all over the news lately. Excuse me, I had to burp. Spotify taking down, apparently Rogan taking down over 100 now, I think, of his episodes on Spotify. And all of it because presumably he was spreading, quote, COVID misinformation by having on well-qualified experts to discuss all the facets of the pandemic. And then also there was, of course, the N-word debacle where people mashed together clips of him saying the N-word where he was quoting people or talking about things people had said. Well, I guess that would be quoting people. I think one was like Richard Pryor's stand-up. The title of it had the N-word in it, and he actually said the N-word over the last decade plus. And it was taken out of context and mashed together in a clip. And then, so people are going after him for both of these things. It's very clear that it is driven by a super PAC now, a Democratic super PAC, that it's been traced back to that pretty clearly. But I'm not going to go into too much detail about this because I'm actually having Maj Touré on the show tomorrow, and he and I are going to discuss a bunch of aspects of it, including the racial aspect, him saying the N-word. We'll get Maj's opinions on it, his take on it. But anyway, regarding censorship, I wanted to talk about a case that is actually in my life with my content. So, as you all may know, if you followed me for a little while, I have been banned or disabled from Instagram a couple times on my personal account at I am Dave Hurt. And it's been for several different things, but the most egregious of which, in my opinion, was when I shared a screenshot of an actual peer-reviewed meta-analysis from the American Journal of Therapeutics, a legit scientific journal. It was a meta-analysis on the efficacy of ivermectin at treating COVID. Now, I didn't say it shows positive results. I didn't say it shows negative results. It was literally, here's a link to the study. Here's a screenshot of the front page of it so you guys can read it. This is a peer-reviewed scientific meta-analysis. And I appealed that because what happened was they took it down. I got a strike or whatever you want to call it. And basically, you can appeal. This was on Instagram. I don't know if I said that. you can appeal any sort of community guideline violation and say that it wasn't a violation of the community guidelines. So I'm going to pull this up and, here we go, account status. So I'll put a screenshot of this. I'll put this up on the video version so you guys can see it. So it says you could lose access to your account in the future. All right, your content has been removed for going against our guidelines. Avoid losing access to your account and the permanent removal of your posts, followers, messages, and archive by following our community guidelines. Okay, that's fine. So I have a couple comments that it says goes against our guidelines on bullying or harassment, both of which were responses to people attacking me on a post I made defending myself. But I got reported for bullying on my post, responding to someone calling me names. So those are whatever, they're still in review, one since October 29th, 2021, and the other more recently since January 4th. So when you submit something for review, Instagram takes their sweet time with it. October, it's been 5 months, but that's not even the worst. So the worst is what I mentioned, this American Journal of Therapeutics screenshot of an article that I shared on my story. Again, this is a peer-reviewed, credible scientific journal that has been around for decades, the American Journal of Therapeutics. And it's a meta-analysis. So a meta-analysis is a combination of the results of a bunch of studies. So it's more statistically robust than a single study. It was done by a group of well-qualified scientists, okay? And again, I don't say anything. I don't make any conclusions about the results. I literally just have the article and say swipe up for full article. That's it. Put it on my story. Instagram took it down. Your story was removed. You violated our guidelines on harmful false information. So the American Journal of Therapeutics is harmful false information. So peer-reviewed scientific research by PhD scientists and MDs is false information based on some person at Instagram, right? Or some algorithm developed by some person at Instagram. Now, here's the thing. I can understand if this gets accidentally flagged because it says ivermectin or what have you. But here's the thing. This was removed, and I got a strike against community guidelines on August 12th of last year. I immediately submitted it for review, appealed it, whatever you want to call it, and it is still, quote, in review. So this is how they get you guys. They don't have to respond to your request for review. They don't have to do anything. And again, here we are. We now have data out of Japan where ivermectin has been shown in phase 3 trials to have antiviral properties against COVID. Again, I literally sharing a screenshot of a scientific article from a scientific journal was removed for misinformation. This is insane. If you had asked me 5-10 years ago, do you think we'll ever get to a place where social media website or social media sites, whatever you want to call them, social media platforms, I guess is the proper way to say it, would remove peer-reviewed scientific articles at their whim because they say it's false information with no credentials, with no actual scientific background? They just remove it because they can, because it goes against the narrative. So this is still in review. I still have not gotten a response from Instagram. I lose access to features all the time, like going live on Instagram and stuff like that, because I have these strikes on my profile. And it's clearly an example of these big tech companies controlling the narrative, censoring information based not on any science. again, I wasn't saying ivermectin is good or bad. I was just sharing a scientific article so folks could read it. And in fact, there's some information in that particular article that indicates ivermectin might not be the most effective. Okay? The degree of confidence in a lot of the findings are not strong. So it could very well be an article in opposition to the use of ivermectin. But here's the thing. Instagram doesn't want to let people even make that decision. They don't even want to let people read peer-reviewed science. And that is terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. Here we are, February of 2022, and you still can't even talk about effective or not effective potential off-label treatments for COVID-19, which is at this point an endemic disease. It's no longer a pandemic. It's an endemic respiratory disease, just like the flu, just like colds, rhinoviruses, etc. And you still can't even share a neutral meta-analysis of ivermectin and its efficacy against a virus. Instagram is actively blocking public health information. But the question you got to ask is why? Why? So, who knows? Same reason they attacked Joe Rogan. They're trying to take him down. I thought by now this would have settled down a little bit. You know, they've made their money, right? The big pharma giants, they've minted money, hand over fist. But no, for whatever reason, they still want to silence the sharing of scientific information, of published scientific data. Instagram, Facebook, Meta, whoever you are, should be ashamed of themselves. This is anti-scientific. It is one step removed from 1984 level state control, truly. Because you have the Biden administration making direct statements at these social media companies saying, do more.
We want every platform to continue doing more to call out mis and disinformation while also uplifting accurate information.
You should do more to control misinformation. And misinformation is such a nebulous term. It's subjective. It can be whatever you want. We already know that Facebook is guilty of having fact checkers remove or label things that just go against their opinions because it was held up to legal standards. It's wild. It's disgraceful. As someone who is fascinated by the sciences, devoted a large part of my life to studying the sciences and doing science and publishing science, it is shameful. It's truly shameful. You should never be blocked from sharing a neutral scientific article that just shows data from a bunch of studies. It's insane. All right, my friends, like I said, tomorrow I've got Maj Touré on. It should be a great show. We're going to talk about Joe Rogan, a bunch of aspects of that whole debacle, Whoopi Goldberg. We'll probably cover some of the Rock stuff. If you guys haven't seen that, he backpedaled essentially on his support for Rogan, and then it came out that he's made a bunch of racial and transphobic and just awful statements over the years. Howard Stern, video surfaced of him doing blackface, and of course Howard Stern has been super critical of Trump and anybody on the right and, calling them racist and bigots and homophobes and all that stuff. It turns out he's worse than everyone. So, look, I'll say this in closing because we're going to talk about it a lot tomorrow. We've all done and said things we regret, period. We're human. This game of digging up stuff different people have done and said, and it's just exhausting. It's ridiculous. It makes no sense. You do it to one side, and then the other side, stuff surfaces with them. Just move forward, man. Just move forward. Because if you're going to hold one person to that standard, you've got to hold everybody to that standard. And you got to ask yourself, do you really want people digging into stuff you've done in the past? Pulling up things you tweeted or said or posted on Facebook 15 years ago, or even longer than that. Pictures of stuff. Like, I mean, look at Howard Stern. Look at The Rock. They act all high and mighty today, but you just go back a little bit and they're saying all kinds of insensitive things to all kinds of groups. You know, times do change. People do change. And I would be shocked if anybody actually said they think The Rock is a racist. I don't think The Rock is a racist. Did he say a bunch of racist and terrible things and do an awful impression of a Chinese person and call somebody a tranny and make other transphobic jokes? Yeah, he did all that stuff. I don't think he's a bad person. He was probably just trying to get a rise out of a crowd. Yeah, it was wrong to say those things, awful things to say. I'm sure he regrets them in retrospect, and I'm sure he learned from them. But I don't think he's a racist, just like I don't think Joe Rogan is a racist. And I don't think Whoopi Goldberg's a racist or an anti-Semite or anything like that. I think sometimes people say things that they regret, that are insensitive. And if we're going to play the game where anything you say is unforgivable, well, good luck to you all. And with that, my friends, until next time, keep your minds free.